Keep in mind that this took place back in 2019 or 2020, before the pandemic, so some of the details are a bit fuzzy, and I'm just really terrible at describing things, but I'll do my best to recount this story as best as I can. At the time, I was barely starting college, and I was working at a store where the company is known for cards and really cheesy Christmas romance movies. It was dark when I had just gotten off work, and I was tired. I admit that I was daydreaming when I got in my car, so I may have forgotten to turn on the headlights as I drove onto the road. I know it was incredibly stupid and dangerous. I honestly just didn't notice it. I was that tired and out of it. The roads to my home had street lamps along them, so it wasn't completely dark, and it played a part as me not noticing that my lights weren't on, because if there weren't any lamps, I know that I would have noticed. The road I was on was mostly empty and had 3 lanes. I was in the middle lane when a large dark blue pickup truck came up on the right lane. It turned on its left turn signal and tried to move to the lane that I was in. It was getting a little too close to me until the last minute when the driver must have noticed my lightless car was in the way before then quickly jerking back to the right. I still stupidly didn't notice my lights weren't on, and I just assumed that I was going too slow for this person. So I sped up a bit to allow them into the lane. The truck then moved behind me, and this is where things got scary. I noticed that the truck was really close up, thinking they just wanted to pass me and move to the right lane. The pickup truck then quickly moved into the right lane right behind me and got back close. I was confused. Didn't this guy want to go to the middle? So I moved back, stupidly thinking that the other driver probably had a direction error. Unfortunately, they moved right back to the middle behind me. Were they following me? Starting to get anxious, I then moved to the left lane as a final test just to be sure. And yep, the truck quickly moved behind. That's when I stopped giving the driver the benefit of the doubt, and I realized that they were actually following me. I was using my signals, but this person wasn't. I guess my final test was enough to really set the other driver off, because they quickly moved back to the middle lane and kept pace with me. I looked over once to see the driver's arm sticking out, flashing what appears to be a flashlight, and I could hear them screaming at me. I quickly turned my eyes back to the road because I didn't want to get into a wreck, which probably even set the driver off more. We were approaching a 4-way intersection, the one that has traffic lights. If I were to turn left, then I would be on the road that has the different streets with houses. One of those streets is where I lived. The turn lane had a red light, but the main traffic light for going straight was green. I had an idea, and with some quick maneuvering, I went into the intersection's left turn lane without using my signals, and then watched as the truck went straight. I felt relieved. At that moment, I had finally noticed that my headlights were off. Mortified, I quickly turned them back on. I let out a sigh, thinking it was just a misunderstanding and that it was over. I was wrong. The truck then made a quick U-turn and got into the right turn lane of the road in front of me. They were sitting there waiting for me. I know this because, like I said earlier, the roads were practically empty, so there were no other cars keeping them from turning right and driving away. No, they were waiting for me to go so they could keep chasing after me. Even with my lights now on, they weren't done with me. The turn light then changed to green, and I reluctantly turned left, with the truck then back to following me. I wanted this chase to end already, as the street to my house was coming up. Safety, security, and my parents. It was literally almost there. However, even as scared and panicked as I was, I knew that the last thing I would want is the other psycho driver to know where I live. I didn't know what they were capable of. I didn't want them to slash the tires of my car, break in, or even have someone harm me or my parents or dogs. This was my fault, and they shouldn't have to deal with this. I was trying to think of a plan of action when I had passed the police station next to the strip mall. I had completely forgotten all about it. After some thinking, I realized that I could try and shake the other driver off, and that if they wouldn't stop following me, I could just make a U-turn and go to the police. After a minute or two, both the truck and I made it to the end of the road where there was another traffic light intersection. This one had 2 left turn lanes, and I got on the side turn lane and the driver got on the outside lane. We were right next to each other. The light was red, and I was trapped. I tried to keep my eyes forward, but I had saw some movement in the corner of my eye. Afraid that it was a gun or a weapon being pulled on me, I turned and I could then see the face of my pursuer sticking out from the passenger side of the truck. It was a woman, and she looked beyond pissed. She was waving a small flashlight that she was flashing me with, screaming at me. It was kind of hard to recall and hear exactly what she was saying, but from the best of my memory, it was something along the lines of, "You freaking asshole! Are you stupid? What's wrong with you? You bitch!" I immediately turned my eyes back to the road, staring pleadingly at the lights. I was hoping that it would change colors really soon. When the lights finally changed to green, the blue pickup truck and I turned left together. And to my surprise, the truck sped past me and then drove off. To this day, I really don't know what made her stop. Maybe she realized there was a police station nearby and was scared I could turn back there. Maybe she saw that my lights were on and felt like she had made her point. Maybe she realized that where we were at was a bit more public with more people possibly watching her. Either way, I never saw her again. The weight of everything didn't hit me until I got home. I was shaking and sobbing when I had told my parents what happened, and they were able to comfort me and calm me down. We didn't call the police. I know it sounds stupid, but I didn't get a good look at the license plate, and there really wasn't anything that the police could do. The only thing I could do is let go and learn from this experience, which is what I did. What I did that night was reckless, dangerous, and could have seriously hurt someone or worse. I now always make sure that my lights are on and everything is set before driving. I don't know what happened to the woman who chased me. I'm sorry if she or a loved one of hers went through something horrible due to a reckless driver. However, I seriously hope she doesn't go off and terrify someone else like she did with me. Please drive responsibly, everyone. The story happened when I was in elementary school. I was a 12-year-old girl in grade 6, and my school still had recess. My school was a pretty big school with a bunch of students and teachers, and our playground wasn't gated or anything, so it'd go slightly unnoticed if a stranger appeared on school property during recess, which is exactly what happened. My friend, who I'll call Jen, and I, for the sake of privacy, were swinging on a saucer swing together until we had noticed some creepy old guy in the middle of the playground with his phone out. He was recording and taking pictures of multiple kids playing. The staff at this school were pretty useless, so none of them noticed nor even said anything to this man. This man then turned his phone toward us, and my friend swore that she saw him zoom in on us with his other hand. Now, I was never one to confront people, and I'm still not, but my friend was. She got up from the swing and dragged me behind her to go to confront this man. I don't know if she just felt safe or what, since there were a bunch of other kids and staff around, but I was shitting bricks myself. She walked right up to this guy, holding my arm and pulling me behind her, then asked in a loud and confident voice, "Hey, are you recording us?" The man looked down at us. I assumed that he didn't understand what we said since he had a confused and friendly expression. Instead, he just held out his phone and just kept repeating, Video? Picture?" I looked at my friend, now scared and confused. I had no idea what the hell this man was saying or doing, and it freaked me out how close we were to him. My friend spoke again and in the same confident voice, "Delete whatever video you have of us right now." I was terrified, and I stayed silent. To this day, I'm still wondering where the hell she got this confidence from to confront some creepy old man as a 12-year-old girl. He didn't answer us this time. Instead, he just smiled and stuck his tongue out, and then did a suggestive motion with it, then holding out his phone again, just laughing. I really wish I was lying when I say this. It was horrifying. I then shot my friend with the most disturbed expression, clearly hinting that we should get away as far away from him as possible right now. She took the hint, and we walked away. As we walked away, we had started heading towards the front doors of the school on the other side of the playground. We were going to the office to report the man. We reported it, and by the time we were done in the office, recess was over. Well, we later found out that the same men did the same thing to another group of girls in my grade, and they reported it to the office too. Police were called to our school and they went over security camera footage. Inconveniently, our encounter with this man was in a blind spot from the cameras, so we were never called to the office again to discuss this, but the other group of girls were. I don't know what happened to the man. I don't know if the police found out who he was, but even if they did, I'm not sure they could even do anything. I'm a 22-year-old now, but I was 17 when this happened. I'm a small girl. I'm 5'2" and only 93 pounds. This happened in a busy area. Everyone knows that Pokemon Go game, right? Well, my family and I would play it a lot. My dad works as a security guard for a park area. My mom and I would go with him to work in the summer to play Pokemon Go. Oh, and he worked third shift. Even at night, this place would be really busy. My mom had to take a phone call and she had stepped away no farther than just a few steps. I was sitting on these stairs. Just so everyone knows, these weren't normal steps. They were really steep, like a 15 to 20 feet drop. I was deep in my phone when I looked up and there was an overweight guy with no shirt on who was screaming in Russian and just looking around. He had a long beard and short peppered hair. I did my best to not look at him, but it was too late. He came over to me screaming in Russian and getting right in my face. I couldn't move, and I was scared too. I was really scared. He just kept screaming at me. I was scared that he was going to push me off. I didn't want to fall 20 feet. I didn't even say a word or look at him, but I could smell the alcohol on his breath. Finally, my mom had gotten off the phone and saw what was happening, and then came rushing over at me screaming at the guy. She then called my dad to come over here and told him what was going on, but the guy took off. My dad got there and tried looking for the guy, but he just couldn't find him. Then my dad called the cops. I told them everything, and they too never found the guy. Oh, there were also people walking by and watching this whole thing go down. I don't blame them for not stepping in, but I always wonder why no one around me had called the cops. My anxiety for public spaces really went up a lot that day. So if you're out and about, please be careful. The story takes place on New Year's Day of 2019. For context, I was not at the house at the time of the story, but my grandmother recounted it in great detail for me. The story is quite fast-paced and it's not very long, but that doesn't take away the fear that we experienced from it. It was around 5 a.m. and my grandmother had just woken up and had made herself a cup of coffee. Her husband and 2-year-old grandson were still sleeping in her bed. After sitting down on the couch for a while, she had decided to open the front doors to let the 2 dogs out to go use the bathroom. As she sat back down though, she had heard the dogs barking aggressively outside, which living in a small town becomes a very unusual sound. She had stepped up to the glass doors to go take a look outside, and suddenly this woman covered in blood and wearing dirty tattered clothing ran up to the door and then stuck her hand right inside. The woman was screaming bloody murder, saying, "They're after me. They're going to kill me." My grandma, being the kind woman that she is, actually let the woman inside to help her. The woman rushed inside and curled up on the floor in a corner in the dining room, muttering to herself how they were going to kill her. At this point, Grandma called the police to report the incident. For the next hour that the police took to arrive, the woman slowly became louder and more hysterical. Grandma was really trying her best to calm her down, as the others were still sleeping. Eventually, the police arrived, and the police had arrested the woman. As it turns out, she had actually been squatting in the top floor apartment for quite some time. She had taken some meth, and when she saw the dogs, she jumped out of the window and then slid down the tree, hence the blood. The men that the woman said that were after her, and I quote, "men who came out of the trash bags." So yeah, after this we got a security camera, and I think that was a good idea. This happened to me pretty recently. For reference, I'm a 17-year-old female around 5'3", so not very tall. Our neighborhood is pretty quiet. Nothing really crazy ever goes on except for the odd car break-in. I have a large dog, and I needed to take him out for a walk. I was home alone, but I've done this before, so I didn't think that it would be an issue. I took him on a different route than normal on this day just to change things up a bit. Before we began the walk, I had noticed this man probably about 20 feet away from us with his face covered. I was aware of my surroundings like I always try to be, so I took a mental note of him and then continued on. I soon realized that he had been taking every turn I did and that he was catching up to me. I tried to walk a little faster, but my dog wanted to stop to sniff something. That's when another man sort of just appeared out of nowhere and then crossed the street, getting right in between me and the other man. This guy was tall and kind of creepy looking. I had also never seen him before. The tall man walked a little faster and then went in front of me. Why were these two suspicious men walking behind and in front of a young girl? What really sent me into full panic mode was when I saw the man in front of me start to make hand motions to the man behind me. I cut the walk short and then ran down a street, away from the route that I was going. Now my heart was beating out of my chest, and to make it worse, the man behind me also quickly changed the way he was going to follow me. I then made a run for it all the way to my house, which was close by, thankfully. I texted my brother, who works pretty close by, just to let him know what was happening, just in case anything were to happen to me. I think that I may have seen one of the men out again, but not the tall guy. I don't know if I was overreacting or not, but it's always best to be safe than sorry. The story took place around fall of 2009 in Plainfield, New Jersey. I was 18 when the story took place. By the way, I'm a woman, if that helps. For some context, I used to date this guy. His name isn't really important for the story though, but he also lived in Plainfield. At the time, we lived 30 minutes away by car, so I would often catch a train to his place since neither of us had a car. Normally, our routine was I text him when I'm close to my stop so that he can start walking and meet me at the train station, which is about 5 to 10 minutes of walking. It was around 9:30ish, and I had texted my boyfriend so he could begin to walk. He didn't reply, which I later found out was because he fell asleep. Well, when I reached my train stop, I decided to just walk to his house and have his little sister open the door for me. As I was walking though, I had passed a bar that had 3 Hispanic men. One thing I always do, especially at night, is never put on headphones while walking. And secondly, I'm constantly looking around and behind me every few seconds. I think that's what prevented this story from being too traumatic. So anyways, as I'm walking, I turn around and see one of the 3 men walking less than 10 steps behind me. At first, I think that it's just nothing, but when I turn around again, it seemed like he had gotten closer now. I began to walk faster at this point. I'm like 5 houses away now from my boyfriend's house. When I turned around again, I kid you not, this guy had stopped running. Do you know when you catch someone running and they suddenly stop and then pretend to walk? Well, that's exactly what he did. At this point, I'm now panicking, and I turn around again to catch him running and then stopping again when he saw me. I don't know what got over me, but instead of running, I saw brick on the ground near this house that we're building. I then picked it up and yelled at him to stay the hell away from me, and at the same time swinging the brick in the air, taking a step towards him. Surprisingly, this actually worked, and he had started to back up and then ran away. I know that this story isn't the scariest, but I'm sure if that guy had gotten close enough to me, things could have gotten a lot worse. To all of the women out there who travel at night for any reasons, always remain vigilant and always be aware of your surroundings.